FIFA have already handed so much control of this tournament over to Donald Trump that he feels like he's untouchable.
Boycotting the event in Washington. The United States has denied visas to several of their top football officials.
FIFA must use its influence to call on the U.S. government to uphold human rights and discriminatory travel bans.
World Cup 2026 was sold to the world as a once-in-a-lifetime football celebration. 3 host countries, 48 national teams, over 100 matches, millions of supporters crossing borders just to sing for 90 minutes, trade scarves with strangers, and come home with stories they'll tell for decades. On paper, it was supposed to be the most global World Cup ever staged, a festival that proved football still has the power to pull humanity into one room. But now, that promise is colliding head-on with a reality that feels completely upside down. Iran has announced it is boycotting the event in Washington after the United States denied visas to several of their top football officials. That alone should have been an emergency alarm for FIFA, because it's not just about one delegation being turned away, it's about the host nation's gatekeeping becoming part of the tournament itself. And when entry into the country starts looking uncertain, the World Cup stops being a World Cup in the true sense. It becomes a selected audience event, shaped less by football merit and more by immigration policy. Picture the fan side of this, because that's where the story gets personal fast. Imagine you've been saving for 2 years. You've cut back on everything. You've told your family, your friends, maybe your child, this summer we're going to the World Cup. You've bought match tickets. You've booked hotels. You've planned routes between cities. You can practically feel the stadium atmosphere already. Then you submit your visa application, and the response comes back with no warmth, no explanation, no second chance. Denied. No clear reason, no real appeal, just a shut door. And it's not a rare story. It's the fear hanging over hundreds of thousands of supporters from Iran, Syria, Nigeria, Ghana, and many other countries who are trying to attend matches on U.S. soil. The dream is simple: watch your country play. The obstacle is not football, not qualification, not ticket availability. It's whether you're considered welcome by policy. Even FIFA's own leadership has been forced to say the quiet part out loud. FIFA Vice President Victor Montaglani acknowledged a truth that in any other era would sound unthinkable. Buying a World Cup ticket does not guarantee entry into the United States. Let that sink in. A World Cup where the ticket in your hand can become meaningless because the host country's immigration rules can override the entire fan experience. That's not a small detail. That's the foundation cracking. Then there's the cost layer, which makes the whole thing feel even colder. If your national team makes a deep run and you're aiming to attend the final, ticket prices alone, before flights, hotels, food, transport, can climb beyond $5,000 per person. FIFA has offered no clear explanation for pricing, no public reassurance that fans won't be squeezed, no strong signal that accessibility matters. It's like the world is being asked to accept that the World Cup is a premium product first, a human gathering second. And here's the part that stuns people. Even citizens of Canada and Mexico, the official co-host nations, aren't automatically exempt from visa friction when it comes to the U.S. portion of the tournament. When a host nation builds administrative walls even around its own neighbors, the world naturally asks the blunt question: who is actually welcome here? This is where the pressure starts to turn from complaint into movement. Behind closed doors, football officials have been meeting in ways that don't happen when everyone feels confident. At the headquarters of the Confederation of African Football, reports describe an emergency meeting where member federations discussed the possibility of withdrawing from World Cup 2026. No big press release, no dramatic podium speech, just serious conversations that leaked because the stakes are too big to keep quiet. And Africa isn't alone. South American nations have been described as coordinating a common position. European federations have been more openly critical of U.S. hosting conditions. The International Players Union has demanded clear answers from FIFA about safety and rights for both players and supporters. During qualification matches, little protest symbols are beginning to appear, not loud, not chaotic, but intentional enough that everyone understands what they mean. Even voices from FIFA's past have jumped in. Sepp Blatter, the former FIFA president who ran the organization for 17 years, has warned that hosting conditions in the United States are unsafe and urged federations to seriously consider a boycott. Other former FIFA officials have echoed that warning, going as far as calling the situation an organizational disaster, a phrase that almost never appears in World Cup build-ups because saying it publicly is basically admitting the machine is not under control. Outside football, human rights organizations have widened the spotlight. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have condemned entry restrictions and discriminatory travel barriers as fundamentally opposed to the spirit of unity a global tournament is supposed to represent. Meanwhile, major outlets keep tracking visa denial stories and the broader pattern of how policy is undermining the tournament's universality. At this point, the boycott talk is no longer some fringe online campaign, it's a wave that keeps picking up weight. And in the middle of it all sits FIFA, oddly quiet for an organization that loves unity language when it's convenient. Now, look at the optics on the ground. Los Angeles, New York, Miami, three of the biggest U.S. host cities for 2026. These same cities have also been witnessing immigration enforcement raids and arrests that are making headlines and raising tensions. Stop and actually imagine the contrast. Stadium teams installing LED screens, hanging "Welcome to the World" banners, selling the tournament as joy and celebration, while on nearby streets, armed agents carry out enforcement actions that do not distinguish between fan, worker, resident, or visitor in the way the public expects a festive global moment to feel. That's not just politics, that's atmosphere. That's what shapes whether people feel safe moving around, speaking freely, filming content, reporting the news, or simply wearing their national jersey without fear that the wrong interaction could become a problem. Reports have described how accredited foreign journalists began receiving warnings from editors, be cautious when reporting in certain U.S. cities. Some diplomatic staff have reported harassment or complications while moving through urban areas. Several countries have issued travel advisories, not for a war zone, but for the host nation of World Cup 2026. That's historically rare, and it changes behavior. Fans don't just worry about tickets anymore, they worry about being treated as suspicious from the moment they land. So the core question being asked is no longer polite or theoretical, it's blunt and practical. Can the United States guarantee the safety of players, officials, and international supporters throughout the tournament? Because the World Cup is not simply 90 minutes of football, it's a temporary migration of humanity. It's millions of people gathering, spending, traveling, celebrating, sometimes protesting, sometimes grieving losses, sometimes partying until sunrise. And that only works when everyone believes they'll be protected not by slogans, but by reality. And right now, reality is sending mixed signals at best. Quick pause. If you're into real breakdowns like this that connect football to the power and politics around it, make sure you subscribe now so you don't miss the next update. This 2026 story is moving fast, and the details matter more than the headlines. Here's what makes the situation even striking. While the controversy keeps boiling in the U.S., something very different is happening in Canada and Mexico, and it's happening quietly. Canada isn't running around trying to win a PR contest. There aren't endless dramatic speeches. The approach looks simple: process visas efficiently, keep security systems consistent, and make visitors feel like guests, not suspects. As the list of countries facing U.S. visa denials grows, Canada is quietly becoming the practical alternative for supporters who still want to be part of the tournament experience. Mexico is moving with that same spirit of welcome. Cities like Guadalajara and Mexico City are preparing in a way that feels culturally natural for football, loud, warm, open. In places like that, fans from Africa, the Middle East, and Asia often feel received rather than screened. The contrast doesn't need exaggeration. It speaks for itself. Sponsors are noticing too, and sponsors don't operate on emotion. They operate on full stadiums and guaranteed visibility. If fans can't reliably enter the U.S., then budgets shift. Reports and industry chatter have suggested major partners are adjusting activation plans, leaning more towards Canadian and Mexican venues, not as a political protest, but as a business decision. A packed stadium produces the images brands want. An empty seat is a dead investment. Supporter groups and regional football associations have begun formal pressure campaigns, submitting petitions to FIFA calling for matches to be moved away from U.S. venues and into Canada or Mexico so more fans can actually attend. That's an escalation. It's one thing to complain online, it's another thing to organize signatures, make formal submissions, and demand structural changes. And that leads to one of the biggest paradoxes of the entire 2026 plan. The largest host nation is at risk of becoming the least welcome part of the tournament. One analyst put it in a way that